go.
Are we supposed to pose?
We're not supposed to know that it's there.
Yeah, you're not supposed to know it's there.
We do now.
Is it
Okay.
recording?
All right, here we go. We have learned 4 new words so far. Take a look at the board. Here we go. You have to be very quiet in order to hear. Does anybody know a type of protein? Here are keywords. Does anybody remember reading this yesterday? Quinn?
Enzymes.
Very good. Enzyme. How about this one?
A combination of substances in which individual substances retain their own properties.
They retain their own properties, but it's a combination of some things. Warren? Very good.
Compounds that always contain hydrogen and carbon, carbohydrates, lipids, proteins, and nucleic acids are organic compounds found in living things.
Oops, the answer was in the definition. What is it, Sam? Oh, Lacey.
Wait, I
Organic compounds. I gotta get that out of there. Those are all the examples of it. This last sentence, I need to take it out. Okay, how about this one?
Compounds, such as H2O, that is made from elements other than carbon and whose atoms usually can be arranged in only one structure.
We talked about this yesterday. What kind of compound is that? Like H2O. Sarah?
Like oh my gosh,
Brittany?
inorganic compound.
No. What? There's two kinds of compounds. One of them starts with an M, one of them starts with an I. Oh, molecular, thank you.
No,
Oh. But it's also inorganic. Okay, very good. Sorry, you were right. Okay, very good. Now, let's talk about what we talked about yesterday, just for a little bit. So someone tell me, what are the 2 kinds of compounds that we talked about yesterday? Raise your hand, raise your hand. The 2 kinds. You read about some on your own, but I want to know the ones we talked about in class. What are the 2 kinds? Connor? You read that by yourself. I want to know, what did we talk about in class? Oh. Molecular and ionic. Very good. Someone give me an example of a molecular compound. An example. Brittany?
No, that was.
Is anybody checking their notes? We took notes on this. Is anybody looking there? Because the answers are there. What's an example of a molecular compound? So when I say you should be checking your notes, you actually should open up the notebook and see. Those of you that are not opening up your notebook, you should be. What's an example of a molecular compound? Lauren? You have to raise your hand and know the answer when you raise your hand. Austin? H2O, water. That's an example of a molecular compound. What's the smallest part of a molecular compound called? The smallest part of it. Sam? Molecule. Thank you so much. What's an example of the other kind? Ionic compound. Quinn? Salt. Okay. What makes an ionic compound ionic? What's it made of? Starts with an I also. What are ionic compounds made of? Hope? Ions. Very good. And we know that ions have a charge. It can be either blank or blank. Ions have a charge. They can be blank or blank. Connor? Positive or negative. Very good. Okay, so if it is positive or negative, it's an ion. What if it has no charge at all? Is that an ion? No. No. It's not an ion if it has no charge at all. Very good. Okay, then we talked about mixtures, and we talked about 2 kinds of mixtures. What were they? Sarah?
No.
What are they called?
Solutions and suspensions.
Solutions and suspensions. What's the difference between each of them? Someone explain. You give me a really good answer. What's the difference between a solution and a suspension? Yes, you can look at the examples up here to help you remember what the difference is. David, what's the difference?
A suspension and solution, and it is where the like the mixture is like stay together, like none of the kind of like drop to the bottom.
Okay, you're definitely on the right track, because which one do they drop to the bottom? Which kind?
Suspension.
The suspension, very good. They drop to the bottom, they sink. Okay, can someone add to what David said? Because he was definitely on the right track. We're still telling the difference between solution and suspension. Lacey, add to that. What you got? How else could you explain the difference? So we said one of them drops to the bottom, that would be the suspension. What else? Is there a detail you can add? Nobody's gonna think you're dumb, just say something. Be brave. Ryan,
I don't know.
you do know.
I don't know.
What is sweat and lemonade? It's a solution, but what makes them solutions? Remember, I was talking about it's really important when you mix up your lemonade that you mix it all together. Quinn?
It's even.
It's evenly mixed throughout. Okay, that's a solution. You have to mix it evenly. So when you mix up lemonade, you can't have clumps at the bottom. That would not be mixed up evenly. There would be some that has more sugar in it than other parts of the solution. So it has to be mixed up evenly. Very good. Okay, now, yesterday you had to read about organic compounds and inorganic compounds. Please have your notebooks ready. What page did we leave off for taking notes? Does everyone still have space on 10? Yes? You better go get it. You will need to bring it every day. Okay, start from where you left off. This was the last thing you wrote about mixtures. Now please make a new bullet and go with organic compounds. Some things you read about yesterday were that organic compounds, they always contain carbon and hydrogen. Those are both elements on our periodic table. They always contain those two things, so please write that. Organic compounds always contain carbon and hydrogen. Two elements on our periodic table. If you run out of space on page 10, you just go right on over to page 11. Another thing we learned yesterday when you read about organic compounds, that these organic compounds are usually in living things. I said usually. Can anybody think of an example of something that would be non-living that would have an organic compound? What did it say? Give an example in that paragraph. What did it say would be an example of a non-living thing that has an organic compound in it? Connor?
Coal.
Coal. Now coal, even though it's a non-living thing, it's not alive, it still has organic compounds because it's made from what? Things that were, Connor? Yep, things that are dead. They were once living, and so those once living things, they had organic compounds in them. So now we have coal that's made from these once living things. So that's why coal is an exception. And there's other non-living things that could be an exception too. But mostly when we think of organic compounds, we just think of living things being made of that. So do you have organic compounds in you? Yeah, are you living? You are, okay, so you do have organic compounds. And we're going to talk about some different kinds. You have these inside of you. Okay? And we get some of these from the foods we eat too. Would a plant have organic compounds?
Yes.
Yes. Would a rock have organic compounds? Probably not. Probably not. Okay? Coal is the exception because it was once made from things that used to live. Okay? Alright. Same with like a dead animal. If you see like roadkill on the side of the road, that would probably have organic compounds in it. In fact, we know it does because it was once living. And so we know that it has organic compounds in it. Okay? Alright. Here we go. The 4 kinds. We have carbohydrates, you can write that down if you haven't already. We have lipids, proteins, and nucleic acids. Those are 4 kinds. Raise your hand if you've heard of carbohydrates before. Where have you heard of that? Raise your hand. Where have you heard? Sarah?
On like labels of food.
Labels of food, yeah, it will say carbohydrates. How about lipids? Raise your hand if you've heard of lipids. That one maybe not so much. Proteins? Have you heard of protein? Like a protein shake or protein in your meat or things like that. So again, having to do with food. Okay, good. So we've probably heard of 1 and 3, but maybe we haven't heard of nucleic acids. Has anyone heard of that? No. Okay, but we've heard of 1 and 3. We can find them in our foods. And in fact, we can find these other ones in our foods too. All right, so number 1, carbohydrates. Their job, they supply energy for cell processes. So cells have activities that they have to do. They have functions and things they have to do. And they're going to need energy in order to do that. So carbohydrates, they supply the energy for that. An example, so please write down the examples too as you're making your notes. Sugars and starches. Now this isn't the sugars like that you would find in candy. Does that mean we should go home and we should just have like a sugar crash and just eat all the candy we can find because we're supposed to have sugar so our cells can do activities? Does that mean that's what we should do? Ryan says, yeah, we should be eating lots of candy. That's not the type of sugar they're talking about. Where can we find good sugar? Sugar that's natural.
Lemonade.
No. Raise your hand. Where can we find natural sugar? Sam?
Food.
What kind of food? Give me an example. Oh, fruit. Yes. Fruit naturally has sugar in it. Lots of fruit is really sugary and very sweet. Like a watermelon has lots of sugar. Anything. Those are natural. We didn't have to inject sugar into our apples or into our grapes. Okay? It's just naturally in there. So those are the types of sugars that are the good sugars your body needs for energy. Okay? Can you think of another example where we might find good sugars like that? They're natural. Sarah?
But what about like natural sugars like sugar cane or something?
Sugar cane, yes, it comes from a plant, doesn't it? The kind of sugars that are bad for you are the ones that are made in factories and put in things like candies, okay? But if they are from a plant or they're from a fruit or things that came from a plant, then it's probably a good sugar, okay? Starches, does anybody know where you can find starch? Raise your hand, where can you find starch? Brittany?
Bread.
In bread, yeah. Breads are starchy. What else?
Potatoes.
Potatoes are starchy. Okay, so your body needs some of that. These starches are good. Like potatoes, those are natural, right? We can get good starches from that. We can get good starches from breads too, especially if you bake your own. Because it doesn't have so many of those preservatives that are put into it to keep it staying fresh. So if you make fresh bread on your own, that's really good. Because you use flour, and flour is made from wheat, and wheat is a plant. Okay? So that's why those kinds of starches are good. Okay, now lipids. Lipids' jobs, they store and release larger amounts of energy. So they are collecting energy for the cells too. But they have larger amounts that they're storing. Okay? Lipids are examples of, they're fats. So they're like oils and fats that you find in foods. Now again, there's some oils and fats that are better than others. Can you think of some natural oils or natural fats that would be good in your diet? Ones that maybe come from plants. Sarah?
Olive oil.
Olive oil comes from olives. Okay, you press the olives and you squeeze them and they produce an oil. And that's why they say olive oil is probably one of the best oils you can eat. It's very natural. And oils are naturally fatty too. Can you think of anything else that would be natural, Connor?
Coconut oil.
Coconut oil? Yeah, exactly. Okay, so those come from actual plants. So when you choose your oils and fats, choose things that are natural like that. Proteins. They are called, their nickname is the building blocks. They're made of amino acids, and an example is enzymes. Can anyone find, I didn't put on there exactly what its job is. Can anyone find what a protein's job is? It's just one little short paragraph, look on 71. Oh, I guess I did basically write it. Okay, they are the building blocks of things like muscles. Nobody caught my spelling mistake?
Yeah.
You did? Sorry. Okay, they're the building blocks of many structures, like your muscles contain lots of protein, so your muscles need it. They're scattered throughout your cell membrane, so the outer covering of your cells, they have proteins. They're made of proteins, okay? So, protein is very important. Where can we find proteins? I said one of them at the beginning of class, remember? Where can you find proteins at? Brittany? A protein bar? Sure. So we have, as humans, we have injected protein into things like into a bar. It's not necessarily all bad. Some of those are really good for you. Where can we find it naturally? Connor? In meats? Yep, in meats and eggs, yeah, they have a lot of protein. Okay. So there are things that where we've injected protein, like I like soy milk. I don't know how many of you like soy milk. Can anyone get that at home? Okay, it's kind of a nutty flavor, and the only thing is though they have injected protein into the milk. It's not natural. Okay. All right, so there's that. Now last one, nucleic acid. Someone tell me, because I haven't written.